The satphone buzzed against my plate carrier like a trapped hornet. Mid-extraction, alley dust in my teeth, rotor wash chewing the sky, and I should have let it go. You do not take calls while moving a grandmother and a bleeding boy across a kill zone, but a mother's radar cuts through doctrine, I answered. Mrs. Hale, this is Street Francis Children's. Breath on the line, metal clatter, a rapid beep beep beep. Your daughter is in critical condition. My brain misfired. Daughter, critical. The word fall came next, wrapped in apologies and paperwork, and then the sentence that blew a hole clean through the world. She was brought in by your husband's new wife. The injuries don't match the story. I called a detective. He isn't moving on it. His brother is the police chief. The alley narrowed. The war turned to static. I watched my team load the boy and his grandmother into the Hilux, lips moving, voices drowned by the rushing in my skull. Listen to me, the nurse whispered, voice low like a prayer she didn't believe would be answered. If you want the truth out, it's on you. Do not discharge her, I said, already moving. Document everything. Photographs, measurements, timestamps, chain of custody on clothing. I'm 6,000 miles away, but I'm coming. The line clicked. Not her fault. Mine forever believing distance could protect us. Second, you have the convoy, I told Diaz, my number 2, pressing the satphone into his palm. Take them to Gaziantep, handoff per protocol, call Ranger House if the border snarls. You're breaking procedure, he said, no judgment, just fact. Procedure doesn't raise my kid. Wheels up in 30, I made it 21. The pilot owed me from Kabul. He didn't ask why. Heat shimmered off the runway like a mirage of every certainty I'd ever relied on. The Black Hawk clawed at the sky. I spread a map across my knees and stared at an ocean that had just become an enemy. Here's the thing about systems. They keep secrets for the people who built them. The moment a system chose my daughter's pain as the price of silence, it became my target. I wrote 3 names on my glove in grease pencil. Detective Chief Her. Then I drew a box around her. We hit the field in the rain. Midnight poured sideways. My boots kissed American tarmac before the stairs locked. No suitcase, no small talk. 1 black backpack, a passport, and a plan to pry power out of closed fists on camera, on paper, in court. The driver didn't speak English, didn't need to. Street Francis Children's, I said. He nodded once and lit the city like a fuse. The ER hallway smelled like antiseptic and old fear. A nurse waited, no smile, no platitudes, just a quick, resolute nod that said I did everything you asked. She led me into a too-bright room where machines breathed for a small, sleeping girl with my mouth and her father's lashes. She's stable, the nurse whispered, but you need to see this. She peeled back the blanket, bruises like constellations you only recognize if you've read the sky. Round, deliberate, not gravity's work. Tiny finger marks ringed her wrist, too small to be mine, too cruel to be an accident. My palm hovered over her hair. Hey Finch, I breathed, using the nickname I saved for home. Mom's here. Her eyelids fluttered, then settled. The nurse slid a sealed evidence bag onto the counter. Clothing, damp in places I refused to name. I photographed everything, she said. I also recorded a call, with the detective. You recorded? He told me to drop it, she swallowed. I knew you'd need proof. The door opened without a knock. Perfume arrived first, sugar over solvent. Then her, the woman my ex married, while I was still learning how to breathe after the divorce papers landed. She wore sympathy like a borrowed coat. You're here, she said, almost smiling. We should talk before you do anything rash. I stood. The room shrank to my heartbeat and the hiss of oxygen. No, I said softly. We'll talk after 3 calls. An attorney, a journalist, and the one person your brother can't bully. I glanced at the nurse. She gave me the smallest nod, a soldier recognizing another. The woman's smile cracked. You don't know what you're starting. I looked at my daughter. You have no idea what I'm finishing. She left with her perfume and a promise of threats. The nurse slipped me a folded note. 3 names, 3 numbers, 3 doors into the machine. Allies, she said. Use them fast. I stepped into the hall and dialed the journalist first. He answered on the second ring. Who's protecting her? I asked. Silence. Then the sound of a chair scraping. I've got sealed reports and a wall of quiet, he said. If you're ready to go on record, the dam breaks. Dawn, I said. Bring a camera. I hung up and called the second number. When the federal line clicked open, I inhaled once. Steady. My name is Captain Nora Hale. I'm reporting an obstruction by local law enforcement tied to a child assault case. I have recordings, timestamps, a cooperative nurse, and the police chief's sister in the middle of it. "Captain Hale," the agent said, voice turning sharp. "We've been waiting for your call." And that's when my phone buzzed again, unknown caller, 12 digits. A number only 3 people on Earth could dial. I answered. My husband's voice, ragged, panicked. "Nora, she's gone." "Who?" I said, though I already knew. "Them both. My stepmother and our daughter's nurse just tipped me you're making a scene. What are you doing?" "Ending one." I turned toward the room, toward the small, sleeping shape under white light, right as a shadow moved in the window glass behind me. The shadow slid across the glass like a stain. I pivoted, slow and calm, the way you do at a door that might hide a blast. A man stood in the hall, cheap suit, badge clipped where decency should go. Detective Mark Hanley, the one who told a nurse to drop it. He didn't knock. He pushed the door with 2 fingers and stepped in like he owned the air. "Captain Hale," he said, glancing at my daughter, then at the sealed evidence bag. "This is a sensitive case. We don't want confusion. I'll take it from here." I didn't move. "Chain of custody is established. You're not listed on the medical hold. Name's detective. Who assigned you?" He smiled without teeth. "Concerned citizens. Family. You've been away a long time." "Not long enough to forget protocol," I said. "Show me the order." He slid a paper from a folder. It was a photocopy, grainy, crooked, unsigned where it mattered. My fingers itched. I made myself breathe through 5 beats. "This is invalid." Hanley shrugged. He reached for the evidence bag. The nurse was faster. "You can review it in the presence of hospital counsel," she said, planting herself between him and the counter like a willow that learned steel. "Until then, nothing leaves this room." His eyes sharpened. "You don't want to be on the wrong side of this." She didn't blink. "I've been on the wrong side before," she said quietly, and I knew she wasn't just talking about work. I stepped closer, voice low enough to make him lean in. "Here's what happens, detective. In 28 minutes, I walk into a federal building with a recording of you telling a mandated reporter to ignore suspected abuse. You can either escort me there like a professional, or explain to a grand jury why you tried to unhook evidence from a child's bed." The pulse in his jaw jumped. He glanced at my daughter again. Guilt didn't cross his face, but calculation did. He tapped the folder against his palm, turned, and left without another word. The nurse sagged a fraction. "You have 28 minutes?" 26 now, I said, checking the time. "I'll be back by rounds." "Make sure you are," she said, and I heard the plea beneath the order. The night outside tasted like galvanized rain. My phone buzzed with a text from the federal contact. 12th floor, use west entrance, no names on arrival. I forwarded the nurse's photos and the audio file to 2 separate encrypted drives, then to an email address only my JAG attorney knew. If they cut one head, another would bite. The west entrance guard looked bored until he saw my eyes. Boredom fled. He scanned me through and sent me to an elevator that moved like a secret. On 12, a woman in a dark suit was waiting with a black recorder and a pad of paper. "Captain Hale," she said. "I'm Special Agent Armitage. Start from the first call." I laid the story out like a map. Satphone, nurse, bruises the color of storms, Detective Hanley's instruction, the police chief's sister playing shepherd to a lie. Armitage asked for times. I gave her minute marks burned into my skull. When I slid Hanley's audio across the table, she didn't touch it for a beat. Then she pressed play. "Drop it. Not your problem." Armitage's pen stopped. "That will do," she said, voice gone flint. "We move now." "Now?" "Internal Affairs is already pinging his phone. We'll seize devices before sunrise. Your child's clothing will be processed by a lab 3 counties over. The chief's house will be quiet until it isn't." She stood. "You will get calls. Do not answer. If your ex-husband appears at the hospital, do not engage. Custody emergency filings are being prepped." Emergency. The word stung and soothed at once. "You're her safest parent," Armitage said. "Matter of fact. Our motion says it plainly." When I reached the lobby, the glass threw my reflection back at me. Hair matted by headset, eyes hollowed by fuel and fear. Outside, a thin seam of dawn was stitching the horizon. I texted the journalist our backup meat parking garage, rooftop, east side, 15 minutes, and moved like someone who had traded tears for traction. He was already there, perched on the concrete lip with a camera bag at his feet, wearing that soft news face that hides teeth. We didn't shake hands, we didn't mic up. He clicked record. "Name?" "Nora Hale." "What happened tonight?" I buried the idea that silence keeps children safe. He held the lens steady. Do you want to name them? Not yet, I said. The evidence will. He lowered the camera a fraction. This goes live at 6. They'll come for you. They already did, I said and turned away. By the time I got back to Street Francis, the hallway felt different, alert, bristling. The nurse stood at my daughter's door, fists tucked into her scrub pockets like she'd hide the whole room inside them if she had to. She woke for a minute, she said quickly, went right back under, but she said something. My throat closed. What did she say? The nurse swallowed. One word. A name. I stepped to the bed. My daughter's lashes trembled like moth wings. I leaned in, breath held so tight it hurt, and then, in a voice smaller than a thread and sharp as glass, she whispered it into my ear. Amber, she whispered. The name hit harder than gunfire. Amber, my husband's new wife, the woman who smiled through hospital corridors like grief, was a performance she'd already rehearsed. My pulse stuttered. The nurse's eyes met mine. She'd heard it too. I brushed a strand of hair from my daughter's forehead and said, barely audible, "Thank you, baby. You did good." The nurse whispered, "We have it on audio, the room recorder caught it." "Lock that file," I said. "Encrypt it twice. No one touches it but us." She nodded. "Already done." For a few seconds, the only sound in the room was the slow, mechanical rhythm of the monitor. Beep, beep, beep. The kind of sound that drills itself into your bones until it becomes part of your heartbeat. Then my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. I answered. "Captain Hale," the voice said, smooth, male, controlled. "This is Chief Barrington. I understand you've been stirring things up." I stood up, turned my back to the bed, and walked to the hallway. "Your detective falsified reports, your sister-in-law assaulted a minor, and your department covered it. I'm done being quiet." His tone dropped an octave. "You're angry, I get that, but there are ways to resolve this without justice?" I cut in. "Without accountability, I'm sure there are, but not the kind you'll like." There was silence on the line, then a slow, dangerous chuckle. "Careful, Captain. The people protecting you might decide you're too loud." I ended the call. No hesitation. When I turned back, the nurse had a look I recognized, not fear, but the calculation of someone deciding whether to flee or fight. "He called you?" she asked. "He threatened me." She inhaled sharply. "Then we don't have much time." 10 minutes later, I'd packed my daughter's things into a hospital-issued bag, signed her temporary custody release, and arranged for her transfer to a federal safe ward under Armitage's order. The ambulance was quiet, unmarked, lights off. I followed behind in the nurse's car. Rain blurred the world outside into streaks of gray and sodium light. The city was waking up, but we were moving against its pulse ghosts escaping daylight. Halfway there, headlights flared behind us. Too close. I checked the mirror, black SUV, no plates. "Keep driving," I told the nurse. "Don't brake, don't look back." "What do we do?" I pulled my sidearm from under the seat, standard issue, though I wasn't supposed to have kept it after discharge. "We make them rethink their decision." The SUV swerved, accelerating until it scraped the lane beside us. A tinted window rolled down, a flash of something metallic, a glimpse of a smirk, and then a pop. Glass spiderwebbed across my passenger window. "Drive," I shouted. The nurse gripped the wheel like it was the only solid thing in the world. Tires screamed, horns blared, rain hammered the windshield. Another pop, a mirror shattered. "Left," I barked. She veered sharply into a side street, engines roaring behind. We skidded past dumpsters, neon signs, and into an industrial alley. I leaned out the broken window, aimed low, and fired twice. A tire burst. The SUV lurched, fishtailed, and slammed into a stack of pallets. We didn't wait to see if anyone got out. We just kept going. When we reached the safe facility, federal security swept us through the gate before the engine even cooled. My daughter was lifted from the ambulance, still asleep, hooked to monitors, fragile but alive. Armitage was waiting under the canopy, trench coat soaked, radio pressed to her ear. "We caught them," she said. "2 men in the SUV. One had your ex-husband's phone number in his log." "Send it to the journalist," I said, still trembling. "Full disclosure. No redactions." She nodded. "Already done." Inside the facility, the lights were dim, the air sterile, heavy with authority. My daughter's room looked less like a hospital and more like a sanctuary, flowers on the windowsill, a small stuffed fox someone had placed beside her pillow. The nurse sat in the corner, shaking but trying to smile. "She's safe now," she said. I turned toward Armitage. "What's the next move?" She exhaled. We unspool the family, quietly first, then publicly. We have the recordings, the photos, the call logs. But there's one missing piece: motive. Motive? I repeated. She nodded. Why would a stepmother risk everything to hurt a child? It doesn't fit. Unless… She pulled a file from her briefcase and slid it across the table. Inside were bank statements, property deeds, legal drafts. My breath caught when I saw the signature. Amber Hale. Your ex-husband's life insurance, Armitage said. He's worth $2 million. And guess who the primary beneficiary was until last week? I stared at the papers, ice spreading through my chest. Armitage's voice was steady. Your daughter inherited everything when he switched the beneficiary. Amber knew. She didn't want to kill the girl, just make her disappear long enough to reclaim control. I sat down, my hands flat on the table. Then she's not done. No, Armitage said softly. But neither are we. The nurse's phone buzzed once. She picked it up, looked at the screen, and went pale. What is it? I asked. She turned the screen toward me. A text message glowed under the rain-smeared light. Unknown number. If you think she's safe, check your back door. Every head in the room snapped toward the window. The wind shifted. A shadow moved. And then the lights went out. Darkness swallowed the room. For half a second, there was nothing but the mechanical beep of the heart monitor and the ragged sound of breathing, mine, the nurse's, Armitage's. Then emergency lights flickered on, red and dim, painting the walls like blood. Lock down! Armitage barked. Her voice snapped the air in two. The guards outside the door moved instantly, sealing the entrance, pulling steel shutters over the windows. Power's been cut locally. That means they're close. I drew my weapon. How many exits? 2. The service hall and the stairwell, both secured. The nurse clutched her phone. The text came from the same number that messaged earlier, the one from her husband's line. Amber's not working alone, I said. She's using his contacts. They want her out before we connect the dots. Armitage's radio crackled. We've got movement at the perimeter, a voice reported. Black sedan, 3 occupants, no plates. Hold fire until visual confirmation, she ordered. The nurse was shaking, trying to steady her voice. What if they try the back door like the text said? They won't make it that far, I said, even though I wasn't sure. My instincts screamed otherwise. I moved to the window, slit between the shutters enough to see the parking lot. Rain slicked the asphalt into a mirror, and in it, I saw silhouettes moving toward the building, low and fast. Not random. Tactical. Armitage, I whispered. They're trained. She didn't flinch. Then they'll regret underestimating who they're dealing with. She pressed her earpiece. Team Bravo, flank left, lights out, silent entry. I turned back to the bed. My daughter stirred, eyes half opening for the first time in days. Mom, she murmured. I'm right here, I said, leaning down. Don't move, we're safe. Her tiny hand found mine. It was enough to keep me steady as the hallway erupted in distant shouts and the muffled crack of gunfire. The nurse gasped. Oh my God. Armitage was already at the door, weapon drawn, calm as winter. Stay with the child, she said to me, then slipped into the hall like a shadow given purpose. Seconds stretched, then footsteps, heavy, fast, too many. I aimed at the door, finger poised, every breath a countdown. The door burst open. A shape lunged in and I nearly fired until I saw the badge. Federal. Armitage's voice followed behind. They're contained, she said, exhaling hard. 2 in custody, 1 wounded. You can stand down. But something in her tone wasn't victory. It was dread. What? I asked. She hesitated, then said quietly. The one we caught alive. Said they weren't here to kill anyone. They were here to take someone. The nurse froze. Take who? Armitage's eyes met mine. Your daughter. The silence after that wasn't silence at all, it was the hum of understanding, the sound of pieces snapping into place. Amber didn't just want to reclaim insurance money, she wanted leverage. A living child meant control, sympathy, immunity, if she played it right. She's running, Armitage said suddenly, pressing her radio. Amber Hale just pinged at a private airstrip 20 minutes east. Charter flight, cash deposit, flight plan to Caracas. My pulse surged. Then why are we still here? We can't leave your daughter unguarded, Armitage said. I looked down at the bed. My daughter was asleep again, her face calm, unaware of the war unfolding around her. I kissed her forehead. She'll be safe, I said. But Amber won't be. Armitage didn't argue. She knew the tone of a soldier who'd already made peace with what came next. Minutes later, I was in her SUV, the storm hammering the windshield, the highway a smear of headlights and sirens. The airstrip was 20 miles out, industrial land, forgotten warehouses, the kind of place where bad decisions boarded private jets. As we turned off the main road, a plane's lights blinked through the rain, engines roared to life. "She's leaving," Armitage muttered. "Not if I can help it." I unbuckled before we stopped moving, swung the door open, boots sinking into mud. The storm soaked me instantly, cold slicing through adrenaline. I ran toward the hangar, pistol drawn, thunder masking my steps. Amber stood at the foot of the plane's stairs, drenched, arguing with a man holding a clipboard. Her hair was plastered to her face, but the smirk was the same poison-sweet smirk she'd worn in the hospital. I called out over the wind, "Don't take another step." She turned, slow, like she'd been expecting me. "You made good time, Nora. Step away from the plane." "Or what? You'll shoot me?" She laughed, high and sharp. "You don't have it in you. You're not a soldier anymore, you're just a mother trying to fix a mess too big for her." "Maybe," I said, closing the distance. "But I'm the kind of mother who finishes what others start." Her smile faded. "You think this ends with me? You think you're saving her? You have no idea how deep this goes." "Then educate me." "I can't," she said, and for a moment, her voice trembled. "Because they'll kill me before I land." She took a step back toward the stairs, and then a spotlight cut through the rain. A chopper hovered overhead, federal insignia gleaming. Armitage's voice boomed through a loudspeaker. "Amber Hale, stand down." Amber froze, her shoulders sank. For the first time, she looked small, defeated. She dropped the bag in her hand, and a flash of metal glinted beneath it. "Gun!" I shouted. She spun, hand diving for the weapon. Reflex took over. 2 shots cracked through the storm, one hers, one mine. Her bullet missed. Mine didn't. She crumpled at the base of the stairs, rain washing red into the dirt. I stood there, chest heaving, every heartbeat louder than the thunder. Armitage's team swarmed the scene, voices overlapping, radios buzzing. When Armitage reached me, she put a hand on my shoulder. "She's gone." I nodded once, staring at the plane still idling behind her. Then so is the lie she built. But deep down, I knew this wasn't over. Because when someone says they will kill me before I land, there's always a they. The storm had passed, but the silence it left behind felt heavier than the thunder ever did. I stood on the hospital rooftop at dawn, the skyline still washed in rain and smoke from the night before. My daughter was alive, Amber was dead, and the headlines were already spinning. Police chief's sister-in-law shot during federal intervention. Mysterious mother returns from overseas mission, connection to corruption probe. They were turning my nightmare into spectacle. But beneath the noise, something real was shifting. When I walked back into the hospital that morning, Armitage was waiting with a file under her arm and eyes that hadn't seen sleep in days. "They're moving fast," she said. "Amber's death triggered a dozen new warrants. The chief's already in custody, the detective's under review, and the governor's office wants answers on why the system protected them." She paused. "They want you to testify." I looked through the window at my daughter, still sleeping under a pale blanket, her small chest rising and falling. "I'll do it," I said quietly, "but not for headlines, for her." Armitage nodded, sliding the file toward me. "Then you'll need this. It's everything Amber was trying to hide." Inside were documents, bank transfers, falsified medical reports, sealed case files. And one more thing. A letter, folded carefully, addressed to me. "Nora. If you're reading this, I didn't make it out. But you should know she wasn't the one giving orders. Look higher. Look at who signed the funding. No signature, just a red fingerprint smudge at the bottom." I felt the air shift. "She wasn't the top," I said. Armitage exhaled. "No, but you just helped pull the first thread of something much bigger." For weeks, the investigation grew like wildfire. Every document I'd given them, every statement I made, cracked another wall of silence. The chief confessed, the detective flipped, and the web unraveled, connecting their family favors to government contracts, medical fund siphoning, even trafficking through charity fronts. The people who had laughed over dinner while my daughter suffered were suddenly nameless faces on news tickers, their empire collapsing under the weight of evidence. But revenge never felt like triumph. It felt like stillness. The kind that comes after you've screamed for too long and finally run out of sound. The night before the trial, I sat beside my daughter's bed as she slept. The machines were quieter now, her skin full of color again. She stirred slightly and mumbled, "Mom, Did you win? I took her hand. No, baby. We didn't win. We survived. She smiled faintly in her sleep, and I realized that was enough. The courtroom the next morning was packed. Reporters, officers, people I'd never met. The prosecutor's voice was steady, the evidence undeniable. When the verdict came, guilty on all counts, the sound of the gavel hitting wood felt like a heartbeat restarting after too long underwater. Outside, the cameras flashed, questions flew, microphones reached for my face. Do you have anything to say? One reporter shouted. I stopped at the courthouse steps, the sky above me finally clear, the air sharp with the smell of rain and justice. Yes, I said. This isn't about revenge. It's about making sure no one else's child is ever silenced because someone powerful decided they could get away with it. Then I walked past them. No tears, no victory speech. Just peace, the kind that only comes when the truth finally breathes on its own. Weeks later, my daughter and I left the city. We moved to a small house by the coast, where the sound of the sea replaced the sound of sirens. I built her a swing from an old fig tree in the yard, and every evening, as the sun fell into the horizon, she'd call, "Higher, Mom." And I'd push her not too hard, not too soft, just enough to keep her flying. One afternoon, as the waves shimmered below, Armitage visited. She stood on the porch, arms crossed, watching my daughter laugh. She's strong, she said. She always was, I replied. Armitage smiled faintly. There's talk in D.C. about a new oversight division for child welfare cases led by veterans with field experience. They want you to head it. I looked at the sea. After everything, I thought I'd left that world behind. Maybe, she said, but maybe you were just preparing to fix it. I didn't answer right away. Instead, I walked to where my daughter sat, the wind tangling her hair, her laughter echoing through the trees. I knelt beside her, kissed her forehead, and whispered, "You're safe now." That night, after she fell asleep, I opened the window. The moonlight spilled across the floor, touching the edge of that same folded letter, the one with the red fingerprint. I burned it slowly, watching the flame consume every lie it represented. Justice had been served, but the war wasn't over. It never truly ends, not for people who've seen how fragile peace can be. But for now, my home was quiet.